Hey everyone, Pastor Wes here with you on Wednesday afternoon. It's been another hot day. It's days like today and the weeks that go by that make you thankful and make you pray as well. Thankful that you have air conditioning and praying that you're able to afford the electric bill when it comes next month. It's been hot. I hope you're staying cool, staying safe. Hope you're having a good week. We're jumping back into our study of growing with God, and last week we began talking about having that fertile ground in our heart in order for God to be able to bear fruit in our lives for His kingdom. And we talked about the seed sown by the wayside. We talked about the hard heart person. And the next heart condition that we see in verse 16 and 17 of Mark chapter 4, we're going to talk about tonight, is the shallow heart, the heart where the seed is sown among stony ground. And Jesus says, "These likewise are the ones sown on stony ground, who when they hear the word immediately receive it with gladness, and they have no root in themselves, and so endure only for a time. Afterward, when tribulation or persecution arises for the world's sake, immediately they stumble." That word immediately is one word that really catches my attention in this. As soon as they hear the word of God, as soon as trouble hits, immediately they stumble. And it's because the heart is like thin soil on top of bedrock or on top of rock, one that would be very typical around the area of Palestine, especially when writing this. And so since there is no depth to the soil, whatever's planted is not going to last long because it doesn't have the ability to grow deep roots. Now, deep roots are very important in plants and different things when you're growing them, because deep roots, one, allows them to get to water, but also roots have to stay cool in order for the plant to survive. A lot of plants die because the roots are shallow and they get so hot that the plants die. The seed that's planted on the rock, the seed on the stony ground, is like a rootless heart that has a very superficial surface walk with the Lord. The person hears the word of God, and he says they become excited over the word of God. They receive the word with gladness. They receive it. They profess belief in Jesus Christ. They make that profession of faith before the world, but what they do is they fail to count the cost involved with serving the Lord. They don't stop to consider the amount of commitment that it takes, especially in the times that we're living in right now, to stay committed to what God has for us to do. The self-denial, the sacrifice that we go through, the study, the hours spent learning, what you're doing right now by watching this video, all the effort that is required into being that overcoming victorious Christian doesn't come easy. And they don't count the cost of any of those things. They receive the word with good news because the promises that are offered in the gospel. And initially, what you'll see is they'll have some growth in the very beginning. They understand some of the basics, but because those roots don't grow deep, they don't allow the truth of God to be able to work its way deep into their heart, deep into their soul, so that it makes a difference in their life. You know, there's a song that talks about from the inside out. And that's the way we grow as believers. We grow from the inside out. And we have to sow the word of God deep in our heart in order for that fruit to come forth out of us and that we live a holy Christian life. But these people, their roots don't go deep. And so as soon as trouble hits, they collapse, they fall, they wilt, they fall away. Several years ago, I was talking with a farmer, and I had passed by his place, and I noticed that his corn had just really shot up, and everything, you know, it looked from the outer, it looked great. The rain had been abundant, and the result of all the rain was very evident. And I was talking to him about it, and he said, "Yeah," but my crops are especially vulnerable right now. He said, "Even if we have just a short drought, it could have a devastating effect." And I really didn't know that much about it at that time. And I said, "Well, why is that?" And he said, "Well, these frequent rains that we're having that look like a benefit," he said, "during that time when there's so much rain and so frequent, when the corn begins to come up, they don't search for water. So their roots don't run deep. Their roots are very shallow. And they remain, you know, right near the surface. And a drought would find those plants unprepared because they haven't had to search deep. All the water has been close to the surface. They haven't had to work hard at all in order to mature and grow. And a drought would just quickly kill all of them. The kind of people that Jesus is talking about here are the people who come to Christ because it's exciting, because it's new, because it's fresh, because let's face it, because it feels good. But when they find out the work that is required on their part, they go and they look for something else. And it reminds me of a story in Matthew chapter 19 when Jesus was talking to the rich man. He said, if you want to be perfect, go and sell what you have and give it to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. He said, come and follow me. But when the young man heard what he was saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Now, I'm not going to address the fact of the rich young man here. I just want to draw a point to what it takes to follow Christ. So many people today, they want to follow Jesus until they find out what it is going to cost them, until they find out that it requires everything. Everything that you are, everything that you have, it requires everything to follow Jesus Christ. And because these people are looking for an easy way through life, they cannot handle the fact that the gospel requires sacrifice, that the gospel requires great discipline on our part and a surrenderance to God's plan and giving up of our plan. And they're not willing to dig in and stand on the word, so they don't have any foundation. And when you don't have a foundation and trouble hits, weak faith always dies. These are people looking for a spiritual high. And when they stop getting it, they go and they look at it for another place. They go and try to find another place where they can feed and try to feed that fix. But they never get grounded. The sad part about it is that they stay baby Christians all of their life. And we see them in every church all over the world, baby Christians that never, ever grow beyond that first point of salvation because those roots never grow deep enough. They never learned what it means to be faithful. And that's one of the things that as believers, we should strive. We should strive to be faithful so that we hear those words one day. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Faithful servant. Next week, we're going to talk about the seed sown among the thorns, the crowded heart. Has a lot to do with the generation that we're living in right now. But until then, hey, I hope you stay cool. It's still going to be hot tomorrow, I'm sure. Find a good place in the air conditioning if you can. Don't get out there and work too much in the yard. We need some rain. Hopefully we'll get some for long. But until next week, have a great rest of your week. I love you. God bless you. Keep the faith.